everyone, and welcome back to 27 Fox Place. I have a few summer recipes that I wanted to share with you today. I got an early start this morning on this week's meal prep. After my morning workout, I spent about an hour washing and chopping the produce for this week. The fridge is stocked and ready to go with a bounty of fresh produce, and of course the first thing that I wanted to do is make a batch of something sweet. I was looking for a healthier alternative to satisfy my sugar cravings, and I found this recipe for coconut energy balls that I wanted to try. The recipe I found has only a few ingredients. There's no added sugar in this recipe, just a cup each of dates, cashew, and unsweetened coconut, and a little nut butter to bind everything together. I'll be sure to add all of the information for today's recipes in the description box. We've had some dates in the fridge that I needed to use up, which is one of the reasons I chose this recipe. Dates are very sweet and they're loaded with healthy nutrients, and I always store the dates in the fridge so that they don't dry out. And to keep the dates fresh, I wanted to transfer the remaining dates into a smaller container to reduce the exposure to air.
Sunrise meets my skin. Even with my eyes still closed, I can feel it coming. Golden.
I'm not sure I've ever made a recipe without changing something about it, so I decided to add a few more ingredients. I added a few scoops of vanilla protein powder and a few tablespoons of flaxseed, which of course made the mixture too dry to stick together, so I increased the almond butter to a half cup, and then I added enough water to bring it all together. Flaxseed is high in fiber and healthy omega-3 fatty acids, and it gels together with water to act as an additional binder. Once the mixture was wet enough to stick together without being too sticky, I used a scoop to measure out the mixture onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. Each scoop is 1 tablespoon, and this recipe would have made an even dozen, but of course I had to test a sample. Once I scooped all the mixture out onto a cookie sheet, I rolled them into balls, and then I put them in the fridge until they firmed up. I left most of them plain, but I decided to roll one in coconut, one in cacao, and another one in vanilla protein powder, and each of them were just as good as the other. I let the tray of energy balls chill in the refrigerator for about an hour before I transferred them to an airtight container. They will keep in the fridge for about a week, or you can freeze them for 2 to 3 months. If fall is sweater weather, then summer is definitely salad weather. And I wanted to make a few dressings and marinades for this week. Store-bought dressings are high in sodium, full of inflammatory oils and sweeteners and preservatives, and it's much cheaper to make a healthier version of dressings at home. This first dressing is for a recipe I found for a bang bang chicken bowl, and this tasty dish has definitely made a permanent place in our meal rotation. It's perfect for lunch or dinner, and it's even a good choice for meal prep. I know I could definitely eat this one every day. It should be no surprise that I swapped out a few ingredients when I made this recipe. The original recipe calls for mayonnaise, but I decided to mix half sour cream and half mayo. I tried to avoid dairy, so I used a vegan sour cream, but I'm sure you could also use Greek yogurt instead. The recipe also calls for a sweet Thai chili sauce, but I didn't have the ingredients on hand, so I decided to substitute the chili sauce with chipotle peppers, and it turned out absolutely amazing. Because homemade dressings don't have any preservatives, they don't last as long as store-bought dressings. Most homemade dressings will last about a week in the fridge. Once I mix all the ingredients together, I transfer the dressing into an airtight bottle, and then I use a paint marker to label the contents. The marker isn't permanent. I use the paint marker on glass and plastic. It washes right off with a little soap and water. I'll be sure to add a link to the description box. I love to use freshly cracked pepper when I'm cooking, and I went through quite a few different pepper mills before I found one that I could recommend. I've used this set for a few years now. It's battery operated, but I think I've only changed the batteries one time since I've had it. I have one for pepper and I have another one for the pink Himalayan salt, but I do like the electric pepper mills because I can use them with one hand while I'm cooking. The next part of this recipe is the chicken. You could either cook this chicken in advance or wait until you're ready to put the bowl together. Either way is just as tasty. There are times when substitutions work out for the better, and this is definitely one of those times. The first few times that I made this recipe, I seasoned the chicken with paprika and garlic powder, and then I coated the chicken with the bang bang sauce and let it marinate for about 30 minutes before I cooked it. I followed the recipe when I seasoned the chicken this time and left off the bang bang sauce. The chicken was good, but it was so much better with the sauce. I decided to use chicken thighs, but chicken breast would work just as well. I always prefer to use chicken thighs because the meat is juicy and I think it has more flavor. I usually try to remember to take something out of the freezer the day before so that I can cook it when we're ready to eat it. But I always cook more than we need so that I can use the leftovers later in the week. I always have balsamic vinaigrette in the fridge. It's great on salads, and it also makes a good marinade for beef and chicken. This vinaigrette is one of the easiest to make. I just use 2 parts oil and 1 part vinegar. I'm using a 16-ounce bottle, so instead of measuring out all of the ingredients, I divided the bottle into thirds, and I'll fill 1/3 with vinegar, and then I'll fill the rest with olive oil. I add about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard and a half a teaspoon of honey. Most salad dressings call for too much sweetener, so I always cut the sweetener in half. If it needs a little more, I can always add it, but most of the time it's just as good without the extra sweetener. And then I mince up 1 garlic clove to add to the dressing. Now that the balsamic dressing is made, I can use it to make the marinade that I'm using this week. I just mixed equal parts of vinaigrette with the coconut aminos, but you could use soy sauce or liquid aminos or even Worcestershire sauce. Once I put all the ingredients together, I store it in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. I'm making this next dressing to go with my favorite summer salad. If you've been to California Pizza Kitchen, then you might be familiar with their California Field salad. This is my copycat version. It's sweet and refreshing and delicious. This vinaigrette is very similar to the balsamic vinaigrette, and it shares many of the same ingredients, but it's much lighter and more refreshing than the balsamic vinaigrette, so it's perfect for any summer salad. I used the juice of half a lemon, 3/4 cups of olive oil, 1/4 cup of champagne vinegar, and a squeeze of honey and Dijon mustard. This recipe also calls for minced shallot, but I didn't have any on hand, so I left it out this time, and I just used garlic instead. I don't own a garlic press. I don't like using them, so instead I use the flat side of the knife to crush the garlic and release the skin. Then I use the side of the knife to flatten out the garlic before I chop it up into a fine mince. Once all the ingredients are together, I add a little salt and pepper, and then I whisk everything together until the dressing is smooth and creamy. I store the dressing in an airtight jar and label the contents. The dressing will last about a week in the fridge, and the dressing might separate, so you may need to shake it before you use it. Now that all of the ingredients have been prepared, it's time to put everything together. Because all of the produce has been washed and chopped ahead of time, it only takes a few minutes to assemble this bang bang chicken bowl. I like to use the grill during the summer months, but you can also cook the chicken in the oven. It only takes about 5 minutes on each side when I'm cooking on the grill. And while I'm waiting for the chicken to cook, I can put everything else together. You could add rice to this bowl, but I'm substituting the rice with spinach today. I use 2 handfuls of spinach, and I like to give the spinach a rough chop before I add it to the bowl. Once the spinach was in the bowl, I added cucumber, red cabbage, and carrots, and then I diced up an avocado to top everything off. I'm a huge fan of ingredient prep, especially when it comes to salads. It makes it so much easier to throw together a salad in no time at all. But this salad bowl could just as easily be put together ahead of time and stored in the fridge. Once the chicken is done, all I need to do is chop it up into bite-sized pieces before I add it to the salad, and then finish it off with the bang bang dressing. The next salad on the menu this week is the CPK Copycat Salad. Of course, I'm making another substitution. The main ingredient for this salad is mixed lettuce greens, but I'm using spinach today because that's just what I have in the fridge this week. Mixed greens are the base for this salad, but the real star of this salad is the fresh basil. It's the one thing that I wouldn't substitute or leave out. Of course, fresh mint would be another good option if you wanted to switch out the basil. I try to prep as much as I can ahead of time, but there's a few things like fresh herbs that are just better if I wait until I'm ready to use them. The fresh basil complements the fresh strawberries and watermelon in this salad, and I'm also going to add a few pepitas or pumpkin seeds for a little extra crunch. We don't eat a lot of dairy, but I do like to sprinkle on a little bit of goat cheese for a little extra flavor. You could dress the salad with the champagne vinaigrette and have it as a side salad, or you could add some diced chicken and make it a full meal. But I have some leftover roast pork in the fridge, so I wanted to slice it up and add it to the salad for some added protein. This last recipe is a summertime favorite because I can cook it on the grill outside when it's too hot to use the oven inside. And I love these shish kebabs because they're a complete meal on a stick and they're packed with flavor. I'm using chicken breasts in this recipe, but you could also use chicken thighs or even steak. I like to cut up the chicken into 1-inch cubes so that there's more surface area for the marinade and they cook evenly with the rest of the veggies. But you could cut the chicken into strips or larger chunks, but the pieces just need to be about the same size so that they cook evenly. Once the chicken has been cut up into pieces, I pour the marinade over top and toss it with the chicken until everything is evenly coated, and then I'll store it in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. I've already chopped up the bell pepper, the summer squash, and the mushrooms to roughly the same size, and I'm adding them to one large bowl. I like to use the same marinade for the veggies, and I marinate the meat and veggies for at least 30 minutes before I plan to cook them. That way, the mushrooms and zucchini have plenty of time to absorb all the marinade. I use a large container with an airtight lid so that I can shake up the veggies with the marinade until everything is coated, and then I can store everything in the fridge until I'm ready to use them. This is a great recipe for a sheet pan meal if you plan on using the oven. You could spread out everything on a sheet pan and bake the whole thing at about 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. But in order to cook them on the grill, I'm using bamboo skewers. It takes a little more time, but it's definitely worth the effort. I try to alternate the ingredients when I put them on the skewer, and then I try to repeat the pattern for the remaining skewers. But I usually end up with a skewer that's made up of whatever's left over in the bowl. It only takes about 10 minutes to grill these chicken kebabs. I cook them for about 5 minutes on one side, and then I turn them over and cook them for another 5 minutes or until they're slightly charred. This was a cook once and eat twice meal for us, so we had leftover kebabs later in the week. These kebabs can be cooked in advance and stored in the fridge for up to 4 days. They're a perfect meal all by themselves, but you could also serve them with rice or a salad. That's all for today. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications before you go. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.